The best runner in school gives up being an athlete when he experiences a trauma in a race, and after that, he gets addicted to virtual reality RPGs. But soon, he will better understand the meaning of the word reality. In the 21st century, there was a great popularization of virtual reality MMO games with all kinds of scenarios, until an old company created an amazing system that had an artificial intelligence that made the NPCs very realistic. The system also had a story with thousands of ramifications and could reproduce the 5 human senses. But games should just be games. Human beings play to relax and forget about the conflicts and problems of real life, and a story that is too realistic becomes a problem. As a result, virtual reality MMO games lost popularity. And guys, help us grow our channel by hitting the like button and subscribing to our channel. We have a lot more exciting content coming up that you don't want to miss. So give it a thumbs up so we can beat the goal of 153 likes on this video. And now let's go. 10 years after the release of this game, we see the protagonist of the anime, a high school boy named Yuki Hiroshi, or just Hiro, which is his nickname. Hiro is at the school board, where the principal talks about his future, but the young man is still undecided. The principal also talks about something bad that happened to Hiro, but he doesn't seem to care much. After the conversation, Hiro meets his friend Takafumi outside the school. He explains that the meeting was pointless, and Takafumi says that Hiro should play more sports, but he only wants to play video games. As he leaves, Hiro reflects on the world being a turd when he is approached by 2 bullies who extort money from him in exchange for protection. Unfortunately, the game costs 12,000 yen. And Hiro realizes that he only has 11,000 yen because he mistakenly handed the bullies a 10,000 yen bill. He tries to negotiate, but the seller doesn't care, so Hiro leaves. Suddenly, he sees another game store but doubts that the game is cheaper there because the lowest price he saw on the internet was 12,000 yen in the store he just passed. Just in case, he enters the store and meets a very pretty clerk named Rayona. He asks about the game, and when she tells him that it is the 22nd game in the franchise, Rayona starts laughing and then talks about how bad it is that the media nowadays have endless continuations, and I won't even say that she is wrong. Nowadays, everything is a franchise, but Hiro doesn't care about this talk and just wants to know if the store has the game. The clerk says she has the game and charges Hiro 10,000 yen, but strangely enough, she asks for the money before handing over the game. After keeping the money, she hands the item to Hiro, but he sees that it is another game called Kiwame Quest. Hiro wants his money back, but Rayona explains that this game is much better, more realistic, and more adult. She even shows him that the rating of the game is for people over 20, and Hiro is only 17. Finally, Rayona tells him that she also plays this game and that she can show him how to play. This way, she manages to force Hiro to take the item. At home, he puts the game on the video game and sits in the virtual reality chair, still very doubtful about the quality of the game. The introduction of the game is a winged woman who tells Hiro to defeat the demon lord and save the world Oberdeen. But first, he has to leave the city and go to Flora's castle. Then, Hiro wakes up in a small house. He looks out the window and sees an amazing landscape, recognizing that the graphics are very advanced even though it is a game from 10 years ago. Outside the house, a girl calls out to him, and when he goes to answer, he stumbles over a chair and realizes that this game even simulates pain. Not that it's good, but it's realistic. The girl opens the door, and it's a blonde girl, and Hiro realizes that the NPC's graphics are also impeccable. Even her skin and personality are ultra-realistic. Afraid that he has ended up in another reality, Hiro gestures with his hand and opens a small menu, so he knows that it is still just a game. At this point, the character introduces herself as Alicia and says that they are childhood friends, and that he promised her he would help with the harvest today. Suddenly, her older brother named Martin arrives, who is also Hiro's best friend in the game story. He asks what's taking so long and gives Hiro an apple, who realizes that the fruit even smells and tastes good. Alicia takes a knife to cut the apple, and for all this realism, Hiro begins to think that the game could be good. To continue with the mission, Hiro asks how to get to Flora's castle, but Martin and Alicia get scared and say that this is no fun. Hiro still insists that he wants to leave the city, but Martin tells him not to say this because the city guard might hear. The atmosphere becomes tense, and realizing that Hiro is confused, Martin explains that the city is surrounded by water so that no one can leave or enter to protect the city from the goblins. Hiro sees this as the first challenge and says that he will face the goblins, but Martin decides to fight Hiro to stop him from leaving. But he sees this as a tutorial event to learn combat. Hiro is punched in the nose and begins to bleed. He gets angry and yells at Martin but is punched again. Martin takes a piece of apple with his knife and starts to eat it while commenting that Hiro could not stand fighting goblins. He asks if Hiro remembers the promise they made under the Kanura tree, but Hiro doesn't know what he's talking about. Unhappy about having problems in real life and still getting beaten up in the game, Hiro goes up to Martin and knocks him down with a strike. Suddenly Martin lies motionless on the ground, and it is at this moment that Hiro realizes that Martin was injured in the fall. The knife he was holding ended up hitting him. Alicia goes crazy for having lost her brother, and afraid of her, Hiro runs out, and she chases after him. When he manages to lose Alicia, Hiro realizes that he has reached an alley. Suddenly, Rayona appears, but her avatar is a fairy. She explains that this is only for store employees. No NPCs or monsters can see her, so she is basically a support for the player. She also explains that the game has no status bar, and to know the progression of the game, a necklace around her neck indicates a title for the player. But when Rayona looks at the little plaque on the necklace, she reads, "Best Friend's Assassin." He explains that it was an accident and asks how to restart the game, but Rayona says there is no way. Even if he buys another game, the history will be kept. The only way to start over is to buy a new device, but this is too expensive for him. So Hiro decides to return the game, but Rayona says that the store doesn't give refunds under any circumstances. She also tells him that of the few people who still play the game, there is a guy named Ginji, who also killed his best friend in the beginning 10 years ago. She then tells him to take the starting money in his pocket, which is 30 golds to buy clothes. In a square, other NPCs comment on Martin's death, and there are already wanted posters with Hiro's image. In a clothing store, the salesman recognizes him but says that he doesn't report customers, but he charges Hiro more, taking advantage of the situation. With his new clothes, Hiro goes with Rayona after Ginji, who is probably in a casino. On the way, Rayona tells them that this town is called Tet and is located on the Alfrey continent. It is known as the Closed City, and anyone who tries to leave is punished as a criminal. But the first mission of the game is to get out of this town. In an alley near where the casino would be, Alicia encounters Hiro, and she is grimly psychologically affected by the incident. Alicia almost stabs Hiro, and after saying that she loves him and will give him a quick death, Hiro starts to run away, and Rayona helps him to lose the girl. In a forest, Hiro talks to Rayona, and they realize that he has a new title, Best Friend Killer in Progress, Runaway Homicide. Since he is class the next day, Hiro decides to stop for the time being, but can't open the menu, so Rayona says there must be a fight going on. At this moment, Alicia catches up with them again. She quickly attacks Hiro and wounds him in the hand, but to help him, Rayona keeps punching Alicia in the eyes to hold her back, and so Hiro manages to escape and get out of the game. The next day at school, he tells Takafumi that he didn't get the game he wanted and tells him about Kiwame Quest. After school, he plays again but his character still has a wounded hand. He checks his pockets and finds a medicinal herb but doesn't know how to activate the item in this game. Suddenly, a drunk appears and calls him NPC, so Hiro understands that this is another player, and this really is Ginji. He helps Hiro to make a bandage with the herb and takes him to a bar. There, Ginji explains that he doesn't know what to do about Hiro's situation. In Ginji's case, he was testing the realism of the game and attacked his best friend. The NPC's sister also went crazy, but Ginji eliminated her as well. They continue talking, and Ginji explains that the game is based on the real physical attributes of the person, so if in real life, he is weak in the game. However, he tells them that one person has already beaten this game, a guy named Kamui who left Ted and managed to beat the game, earning the title the Eternally Invincible, Never Overcome Adventurer, while Ginji's title is still Inhuman, Heartless. At the end of the conversation, Ginji acts strangely. He yells that the assassin is there and calls the city guard. He talks about how if Hiro does well in the interrogation, he might be cleared. The guards arrive on the scene and surround Hiro. The boy is taken to a square to be stoned, and people throw stones and vegetables at Hiro. He complains to the guard, but he says that this is normal. But the guard doesn't like it either because he ends up getting hit too, so he tells the people to stop. Hiro tries to free himself by telling the guard that he is a hero, but the guard tells him that many people say this. In the distance, on the roof of a house, Hiro sees Alicia, who is still following him. Later, he is taken to a prison cell. The guards tell him that they are going to make some preparations, so Hiro waits. Annoyed, he tries to leave the game, but the menu appears with the warning that it is not possible to leave during the event. He waits more than an hour, but the message continues. He starts to feel hungry and wants to urinate, but when he gets close to the latrine, a ghost appears next to him. Hiro is startled and falls to the ground, recognizing Martin's ghost. He says that he wanted to live longer and also asks about the promise they made, but Hiro still doesn't know. Terrified, the boy starts screaming for Rayona, but who appears as a girl with red hair named Mizurisa. She knows Hiro's name and opens the cell door. He is taken to an isolated spot, a small room with a bed in the middle. Mizurisa says it is time for fun, and suddenly a message appears saying this will involve intense stimulation. Hiro is confused. He thinks it will be an adult event, but doesn't know if he should accept, but out of curiosity, he does. Mizurisa tells him to lie down and close his eyes while she prepares. When she tells him to open his eyes, she has a red saw in her hand and explains that it will be a session of torture and exorcism, and Hiro realizes that he is tied to the bed by his hands and feet. She further explains that if he can endure it, a demon will be blamed for Martin's death, but if he can't and ends up confessing to the crime, he will have to do the punishment. The torture would be to cut Hiro. He becomes desperate and begins to scream. At this point, Rayona finally appears, and he asks for her help, but all Rayona can do is provide moral support. Completely desperate, Hiro ends up pissing his pants. I mean, who wouldn't? After that, a guard opens the door and tells her to end the torture, warning that it is an order from the head of the city guard. Hiro's title changes to Shower Best Friend Killer, Emicide who had an accident. Embarrassed, he opens the menu and disconnects from the game, saying that he will no longer play. In a flashback, we see Hiro preparing for a race. People comment that he was the best runner in elementary school, but they also talk about another very good boy named Moriguchi. Hiro feels like going to the toilet but cannot find it. Suddenly, he is approached by a guy in a hat and dark glasses who reveals himself to be Mike McLaughlin, a famous retired runner. Mike explains that there are many promising athletes on the track today, and that there should be some stars born in this competition. He finishes by telling Hiro to do his best because he is watching. With this conversation, Hiro forgets to use the bathroom but starts the race anyway. The race begins, and Hiro lags behind a bit, while Moriguchi takes the lead, but Hiro is determined and manages to accelerate even faster. But just as he's about to catch up to Moriguchi, Hiro trips over his own feet and falls. Moriguchi wins the race, and as he falls, Hiro ends up urinating in his pants. Seeing this, everyone around them laughs their heads off. After changing, Hiro is found by his sister, who tries to comfort him, but he is in a very bad way and ends up being rude to her. Mike also finds him but only to say that he doesn't have what it takes to be an athlete because he doesn't have good self-control under pressure. Back to the present, Hiro wakes up the next day, and at breakfast, his sister complains that he has been shouting a lot in the morning and asks if this is because of an RPG. He tells her that it was a game, but that this won't happen anymore because he won't play it anymore. When she sees that he is giving up, she calls him pathetic because he has already given up racing, and now he is giving up the game. Even so, he takes the game to the store with the intention of selling it, but Rayona still insists on showing him a tutorial created by Kamui, the guy who managed to finish the game. She shows him the website Kamui created during high school, but the text of the guide starts insulting players who need a tutorial to beat a game, calling the reader garbage several times and telling him to die. Hiro arrives in a video where Kamui speaks in a very annoying way and gives a hint that the person should train, do weight training, and run in real life to improve physical attributes. Then a list of videos on different subjects appears. In one video about the childhood friend wanting to kill you, he says that the player should think about what would be the most disturbing thing you can hear from your best friend. About the ghost of the best friend, he says that it is the fault of the player who killed the guy and that he should take it with him. And lastly, there is a tip about weapons. Kamui warns that there is a sword in the room at the beginning of the game. All the videos are extremely annoying, and Hiro gets frustrated. Rayona then tells Hiro that if anyone else finished the game, she would marry that person, showing interest in Hiro, but he says he won't fall for it. But she gives him the look of the cat in boots and convinces Hiro. So he returns to the game, continuing from the torture room, where the guard tells him to leave soon because he will be taken to the captain of the city guard. As the guard takes him through an underground passage, Hiro hears a strange noise, like a grunting sound coming from a hallway, and he thinks it's someone being tortured. The guard takes Hiro to the residence of Captain Thundering Tesla. Did you get the reference? The house is very large and luxurious, and Hiro meets the guy with long red hair. The captain is very kind and explains that the crime scene really looked like an accident because nobody tries to kill someone with a fruit knife, and it would take a lot of skill to hit the guy with a knife like that. So Hiro is absolved of the charge. After eating at Tesla's house, Hiro goes with Rayona back to get the sword, but he realizes that although he has been acquitted, the citizens still see him as a murderer. Since he still has a bad reputation, Hiro can't get a free way back home without passing through the citizens who want to catch him. So Rayona suggests buying some items like smoke bombs to deal with Alicia, but he has limited money, so she gives him 3 options: stealing, borrowing, or getting a job. Hiro doesn't have the courage to steal, so he decides to work. Since he is still considered a murderer, he can't get a normal job, so Rayona takes him to a woman who can give dubious jobs to dubious people. Hiro gets an assignment to do something for Brian for an hour to earn 100 golds, but when he finds out that Brian is a masochist and that the job would be to whip the guy, Hiro gets angry and starts yelling at Rayona, but the woman who gave him the job feels offended and throws him out. All that's left is to borrow money, so they go to Ginji even though Hiro doesn't like him. Unfortunately, Rayona starts the conversation by telling him about what happened in the torture room, and Ginji starts teasing the boy. This makes Hiro furious, and they start a ridiculous fight which ends with Hiro pulling Ginji's hair while Ginji pinches Hiro until the boy takes advantage of an opening to attack, but he stops when Martin's ghost appears, saying that Hiro is going to hurt someone else. Ginji also sees his own ghosts, and this becomes a common feature between the two. After the fight, taking advantage of Ginji's drunkenness, Rayona tells him that since he lost the duel, he needs to pay Hiro the money, and the guy hands over the money. As they leave the casino, Hiro's title changes to Elderly Hunter Murderer's Best Friend, Amicide who steals old people. After buying 2 smoke bombs, Hiro finally arrives home. The place is gloomy, but at least they remove the body after the investigation. When he picks up the sword from the corner of the room, Alicia emerges from the shadows with a macabre smile. Hiro tries to use a smoke bomb, but it doesn't work because he doesn't have anything to light the wick. Suddenly, someone enters, breaking the window of the room. Hiro thinks it's Tesla, but in fact, it turns out to be Mizurisa, who has shown up to defend the guy. Mizurisa says that she followed the strong smell of urine to find Hiro. After that, the battle between the 2 girls begins. Alicia is very fast, but as a trained inquisitor, Mizurisa manages to disarm Alicia. Hiro takes the opportunity to throw away her knife, but Alicia pulls out 2 other knives. The fight becomes intense, and Mizurisa manages to fend off Alicia's attacks only barely. After adapting to her opponent's fast movements, Mizurisa manages to disarm her again, but Alicia takes advantage of an opening to kick the Inquisitor in the stomach and knocks her out with a second kick. The girl gets more and more sinister and even realizes that there is a fairy in the place, so she puts on her glasses to protect herself. Martin's ghost also appears to make matters worse, and in the middle of this confusion, Hiro remembers Kamui's hints, and after some thought, he starts shouting that he loves Alicia, this being the most disturbing thing to say to a childhood friend. She is confused, and he keeps saying that he loves her and wants to marry her, until she admits that she loves him too, and that Martin loved him too, but he killed her brother and ran away. Too confused, Alicia leaves, but at least she is no longer trying to eliminate Hiro. With this, Hiro understands the realism of the game and the depth of the characters, since it is traumatizing to see your brother die at the hands of his best friend and then the guy run away. Hiro's mistake was to think that this game was common with common NPCs. Hiro finally gets the sword and then asks Rayona where the Kanura tree is, and goes to the place that is close to where they are. There, he calls out to Martin but is no longer startled by his appearance. He apologizes and says that he wants to take Martin with him. At this moment, Hiro is taken to a scene from the past when he, Martin, and Alicia were children. After a joke, the child Hiro says to Martin, "We best friends," and after being corrected by Martin, he keeps saying it wrong. Back in the present, Hiro repeats the phrase wrongly and Martin's ghost finally accepts that these are the words of the promise he has been asking about. After this, the ghost disappears and Hiro is thrilled. The title on the plaque changes to Best Friends Best Killer, Best Amicide. Suddenly, Hiro notices in the distance that there is smoke in various parts of the town and Rayona tells him that she has never seen this event before. Arriving in town, Hiro tries to ask what happened but everyone is too desperate to answer. Rayona suggests taking the sword to the blacksmith to remove the rust and ask what is going on. At the forge, the blacksmith says that this is not a good time to work and explains that the city is being attacked by goblins, and that this happened because after an intense drought, the moat doesn't have enough water to keep the beasts away. At Hiro's insistence about fixing the sword, the blacksmith tells him to use the stone to sharpen the weapon and then leaves. Hiro tries to use the stone, but it is a difficult and time-consuming process while people are shouting outside. Hiro wants to help the citizens, but Rayona says that he will die, and that if he dies, the video game and the game will break. This is a function of the game and is something that caused the game to fail in the market. I wonder why. Rayona suggests that he quit the game to check Kamui's guide to see if there is any information that can help, but before leaving, Hiro decides to take a peek to see what the goblins are like. The creatures are realistic, but Hiro also sees a defenseless child about to be attacked. The child is defended by the city guard, but the soldiers are easily killed by the goblin, who is very fast and very strong. Hiro would not stand a chance. Still, he wants to help the girl, and Rayona helps him. She throws a tiny stone at the monster to serve as a distraction while Hiro runs to get the girl out of there. He runs with her on his lap but runs into another goblin that has him surrounded. Hiro sends the girl running through an alley while he tries to distract the 2 goblins, but one of the monsters manages to run after the girl. Hiro runs after this goblin and suddenly reaches an intensely high speed, managing to pass the goblin and pick up the girl on his lap. Hiro doesn't know how he reached this speed, but unfortunately, the goblins surround him again. Luckily, someone appears to save them. It's Tesla wearing golden armor. He uses an electric attack with the golden sword, killing both monsters immediately. Other soldiers arrive, and Tesla tells them to escort the girl and take care of the burning houses. Afterwards, Tesla speaks to Hiro, saying that they are in need of warriors and asks him to work for the city guard as a mercenary, even if it is only temporary. Hiro cheerfully accepts and then leaves the game. The next day before logging into the game again, Hiro takes a look at Kamui's guide, which says that in the case of a goblin attack, a person has a few options in how to deal with this, but the most difficult would be to join Tesla as a mercenary because then you only have a 0.1% chance of survival. Kamui explains that for those who have the title Best Friends Best Assassin, they might have a slightly better chance of survival if they endure the training of the city guard, increasing the chance from 0.1 to 0.5%. Hiro decides to keep playing anyway. He goes to his sister's room and warns her that for the next few days, since they won't have class, he will just play and probably scream at night. He also tells her that after what she said, he tried to sell the game but gave up and now wants to go all the way. Anyway, his sister seems insensitive about this. Back in the game, Tesla takes Hiro to meet Queen Govern, and then he goes to the training of the recruits. Besides Hiro, there are 2 more guys entering as mercenaries. One of them is Grenade, a big guy with scars on his face, and the other is Palu, who is smaller but seems malicious. Hiro meets a kind guard named Bob who takes him to the dormitories to change. The training instructor is Amos, the same guard who led Hiro to stoning and to prison. Eventually, he also meets Kathy, a girl who recognizes him for having saved the girl earlier. At this point, Amos challenges Hiro to a training fight with wooden swords. Hiro tries to attack, but Amos is quick and easily fights back. After a few more attacks, Amos lands several blows that Hiro manages to defend until Amos ends up disarming him and knocks him to the ground. As a result, everyone around realizes how weak Hiro is. While the boy is on the ground, Amos is defeated by Grenade, who tells him that the instructor is not that strong. The next day, Amos puts Hiro through some sword training, and at one point, Kathy shows up to give him some tips. On the 3rd day of training, he is put to train with Grenade, still using wooden swords. Hiro narrowly escapes Grenade's first attack and realizes that he could die even though it is a training session. He tries to attack with all his might, but Grenade defends himself and calls him weak, delivering a blow that knocks Hiro to the ground, causing Amos to declare Grenade the winner. Palu and Grenade are laughing, and Palu says that Hiro could pay them to stay there, which reminds Hiro of the real-world bullies. Then Rayona takes Hiro to a doctor's office thinking that he might get some advice from the doctor, but upon hearing of his problems, the guy says that it's Hiro's own fault for enlisting without any combat experience. As he leaves the office, Hiro runs into Kathy, who explains that this is an office for injuries and wounds and should not help with other types of problems. She then advises him to pray, explaining that good things happen when she prays. Hiro then goes to the church where a nun says that there is a dark aura around him. She gets a bowl of holy water and throws it on him, saying that everything will be better now. The next day, Hiro realizes that nothing has improved. He continues to have difficulties, the bullies keep extorting and beating him, and they give the excuse that it is training, so the instructor does nothing about it. At one point, they even use Kathy to torment Hiro, forcing her to say that she is not his friend so that she won't receive the same training as him. On the last day of training, Grenade cannot find the pair of boots he was wearing. He had gotten this pair from his grandmother when he became a mercenary. After much searching, Grenade finds the boots in the sewer, and this makes him sad. Then he realizes that the sword is also gone. Everyone helps him to search, but he only finds the sword in a latrine, which is a simple toilet. To make matters worse, Nurse Maria loses her own panties, which are found in Grenade's purse. The soldiers blame him, but he swears he didn't do it. Everyone starts to reject the guy, including Palu, which makes the big guy cry with sadness. Later, the instructor tells him that Grenade is quitting the guard for personal reasons. At which point, Tesla arrives with a letter which says that Amos tormented Grenade with the intention of making him quit, and that it was because he had defeated the instructor in a sword training session. The letter has Palu's signature on it, but he denies having written it. Tesla knows that there is no proof of the charges, but asks the students what they think of the instructor, and everyone goes against Amos after Kathy says that he doesn't give a damn about the training, and that he did nothing for Hiro when he was tormented by the bullies. Everyone agrees with Kathy, and with that, Tesla fires Amos because an instructor should have the respect of the students. At night, Hiro finds out that everything that happened was Rayona's doing, and even though he didn't do anything, the title on his plaque changes to Devilish and Resentful Best Friend's Murderer, Evil Amicide. Rayona says that this is because she is just a support. Later in the evening, Tesla goes to talk to Hiro. He comments that he knows that Hiro wants to leave town, and also says that he would like to go out and test his own abilities if he weren't the captain of the guard. Hiro invites Tesla to go with him, and Tesla says that he will think about whether they can defeat the next goblin attack. This causes Hiro to stop and read Kamui's guide because he doesn't want Tesla to die. After entering the current title in the guide, Hiro sees another video where Kamui explains that the player will eventually discover the mystery about Ted's town. After that, Hiro learns some tricks from Kamui. The next day in the game, the soldiers prepare for the next goblin attack. Tesla comments that 2 new people are going to join the guard, but they turn out to be Alicia and Mizurissa. Tesla explains that they tried to direct the people on the outskirts to the center, but some ignored the evacuation order, and there are also reports of crime happening there, so the soldiers will have to go on patrol. He puts Hiro together with Alicia and Mizurissa to patrol the Eastern District, which is where the casino is. During the patrol, the group passes by a woman who has just been robbed. The thief runs towards the group, but when he passes by Alicia, she quickly knocks him down and retrieves her purse. Only then Hiro realizes that she has cut off the thief's hand in the process. When questioned by Mizurissa, the thief tells her that someone encouraged him to steal at a time when the guard is distracted. Soon afterward, a store nearby is also robbed. Questioned by Hiro, The thief says that the person who encouraged these crimes is in the casino. They investigate the place and find several bandits there, but they discover that the real villain was Ginji himself, who suddenly attacks Hiro, and the two prepare for a fight. But before the next attack, Ginji is hit by Alicia and falls to the ground. All the bandits, including Ginji, are taken to the prison where they hear the same strange sound near the underground passage that Hiro heard days before. Tesla appears and thanks Hiro. At this moment, they are warned that the goblin attack has begun. All the soldiers prepare themselves, but Hiro feels a strong stomach ache. He goes to the bathroom first, but when he's ready to return, a goblin appears looking through a crack. Hiro is desperate, but Mizurisa appears and quickly cuts the goblin down. He continues on his way but begins to feel the same pain again. Rayona says that the realism of the game can reproduce events according to a person's emotion, so if he has already experienced some problems with nerves in the past, this can continue to occur. Hiro is afraid, but she asks him to tell her about the past so that she can help him. He tells her what happened in the school run, and Rayona laughs. She mocks him, and he gets angry, but suddenly she asks about the pain, and Hiro realizes that the pain is gone and understands that Rayona did this on purpose to distract him from his nervousness. He manages to find the rest of the troop all facing a large group of goblins. The battle begins with the goblins easily eliminating several soldiers. The only one who can deal with the creatures is Tesla, using his electric attacks, but he alone could not defeat all the goblins. Suddenly, Mizurisa and Alicia appear and also manage to take down a few goblins with some ease. This ends up turning the game around. Out of nowhere, Bob and Kathy also arrive. She tells Tesla that the goblins have invaded from the south and arrived at Queen Govern's estate. Tesla is alarmed because the southern gate is more fortified and better protected, but Kathy warns him that a powerful goblin destroyed the gate. Tesla mentions a one-eyed man and leaves for the Queen's estate, directing the other soldiers as well. Hiro notices that Kathy is wounded, and she tells him that few soldiers can still fight, so she asks him to join Captain Tesla. When he arrives at the place, Hiro sees the soldiers being eliminated by a red goblin much larger than the others, with a scar over his left eye and holding a machete. Tesla tells him that he faced him several years ago but only managed to wound his eye and escape. The captain then orders the guards to fetch the cage while he holds the one-eyed man. Hiro reluctantly draws his sword, but Mizurisa appears and tells him that it is too dangerous. Alicia also appears and tells him to let them handle it. When Mizurisa tries to attack, the monster kicks her so hard that she hits the wall and falls unconscious. Alicia also goes after the monster and starts a high-speed battle, so fast that you can barely see their movements. Finally, the soldiers arrive with the cage, and inside it are some very pale goblins. Tesla attracts the one-eyed man who seems affected by this scene. Taking advantage of the opening, he lands a cut on the goblin's chest, knocking him to the ground. Hiro thinks that everything is fine but remembers what Kamui said about the chances of survival. Gathering the information, he realizes that the grunting of the goblins in the cage is the same noise he has heard other times near the entrance to the underground. He talks about the goblin's skin and eyes being very pale as a consequence of having been kept underground for years. Then he accuses Tesla of having kidnapped the goblins. At this point, Tesla finishes off the red goblin and tells him that this was the father of the trapped goblins. Suddenly, Queen Govern appears, who is also already aware of what had happened. She and Tesla then explain that goblins are a tool of control. They are very intelligent creatures and are usually peaceful, but their ferocity can be used to keep people in the city and also to prevent others from invading. All this is to keep Ted's town isolated from the rest of the world as if it were a kingdom of its own. Suddenly the Queen kisses Tesla, and then he eliminates the guards who brought the cage, saying that all who discover the secret must be eliminated, including Hiro. Tesla prepares a powerful electric sword attack and advances on Hiro, but Alicia stands between them, giving her life for her childhood friend. In the last moments, she tells him that Martine visited her in a dream and said that Hiro was not guilty. In her last breath, she tells Hiro to live a full life for her and Martin. Even though he knows that she is only an NPC in a game, Hiro feels a lot of anger for Alicia's death. Tesla prepares his next attack and advances again, but he just passes Hiro, who surprisingly remains unharmed. Tesla attacks again, but it is shown that in an instant, Hiro managed to hold off the attack with his own sword. Then a flashback is shown of when Hiro learned Kamui's trick from the guide. Kamui says that this trick is good for any game and that, in fact, it is also good for real life, but the world is full of idiots, and no one ever uses this trick. Finally, he reveals that the player's stats increase absurdly according to emotion, but not any emotion, just the conviction not to give up. This feeling can make you exceed your limits. Back in the present, Hiro is illuminated by a greenish aura and attacks Tesla fiercely, but the captain manages to defend himself. Hiro attacks repeatedly and also manages to dodge Tesla's attacks. He becomes extremely fast, and even Rayona cannot keep up with his movements. At one point, he manages to cause an opening in Tesla's defense, and a blade is shown flying away. When Hiro finally hits his opponent's chest, we see that Hiro's sword is broken, and Tesla laughs and attacks Hiro again. This time, Hiro suddenly wakes up in the Kanura tree, where he finds Martin. Hiro then tells him that he died, and that Alicia was also grounded. Martin says that Hiro did the best he could but that it's not over yet and tells Hiro to take him along. He then wakes up again in front of Tesla and realizes that the broken sword has a green aura in place of the blade, and that this is what held off Tesla's attack. A green explosion shatters the captain's golden sword. At this moment, Hiro's title changes to Best Friend's Assassin Sword User, Blade Carrier Amicide. Tesla prepares his supreme technique, and the electric power envelops Tesla's body and sword. But Hiro doesn't hesitate, he's sure to win. During Tesla's attack, Hiro can see his movement clearly, but at the last moment, Govern appears behind Hiro and throws a knee from behind his legs, helping Tesla to pierce Hiro. After this, we see him talking to Rayona on the phone. The video game really broke, but Rayona wants to lend him hers to try again. But for Hiro, it wouldn't be the same to redo a new story after all he has been through. Suddenly, he sees that a new video has appeared on Kamui's website with the title, "For Idiots Who Toasted the Console." In the video, Kamui says that he warned that the chance would be only 0.1%, but that he has a trick to come back with the same save an hour before he died. On another console, the person needs to start the game and shout a phrase in a strange language like an enchantment. Hiro gets excited about this possibility, and then begins to train and run in preparation for the next attempt. At school, Takafumi comments that Hiro has changed, and that even his expression has improved. The bullies show up to disturb him again and ask him why he is training so hard. Hiro remembers Tesla eliminating him and starts yelling that he will hit the guy in the eye next time. The bullies get scared and finally leave him alone. After a month of preparation, Hiro picks up the console with Rayona and takes it home. The anime ends with Hiro sitting in his gamer chair to re-enter this virtual reality game that is more realistic than real life. Your support means everything to me. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more content like this.